I'm not going to sit here and continue to bombard you guys with Russ Wilson rumors. Oh, he's going here, he's going there, he's going to ask for a trade this offseason. No, he's going to leave next offseason. Or, oh, Russ is leaving Seattle. Or, oh, Russ is staying in Seattle. I'm not here for none of that. Surely you guys have had enough of your Russ Wilson fix, at least in that regard. So today, we're going to lean in a different direction. We're going to talk about, and because at the moment, Russ Wilson is still currently on the Seattle Seahawks roster, whether or not you believe he's going to leave Seattle this offseason or next offseason, or whether or not you believe he'll be traded within a matter of weeks, honestly, it doesn't matter. At this current moment in time, as of January 24th, 2022, Russell Wilson is still on the Seattle Seahawks roster. And that being said, I'm not going to sit here and say that Russell Wilson isn't happy, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that Russell Wilson is completely happy in Seattle because, let's be real, it could always be better. And not to sound like a spoiled fan, obviously, but with those things in hand, here's how Seattle can keep Russell Wilson happy in Seattle for the foreseeable future. Before we dive in, please, if you guys haven't already, or if you guys aren't already, please help us get to 3,000 subscribers. Last time I checked, we're only about 8 subscribers away. And as you guys might or might not know, that was the goal last year heading into 2022. But because we had so many things come in the way of that, well, we weren't able to actually hit 3,000. But seeing as how we're 8 away now, if you guys could please help us reach 3,000. I promise you guys we have so many things planned and in the works for you guys. So I promise you it won't be a waste of a subscription. That being said, don't forget to also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, as we've been working diligently to be a lot more active on other social medias aside from YouTube. So again, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff. And of course, YouTube at SteezyBandz if you ain't already. Let's talk some Hawks, shall we?
Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the.
Number one, to keep Russell Wilson happy, or to at least make him happy if he isn't happy, let's give Russell Wilson a 5-year extension worth $200 million. And yes, I understand John Schneider is the vice president, or is at least the GM for the Seattle Seahawks, not SteezyBandz. But again, this is what I would do if I was John Schneider managing the Seattle Seahawks. Look, Russell Wilson, there might be some speculation as to whether or not he might not be a top 5 quarterback anymore, but because he's still an elite franchise quarterback in the National Football League who just turned 33 years old, I've been on record saying this, 33 is a new 25. And so Russell Wilson is currently the 5th highest paid quarterback in the NFL at $35 million annually. And that's behind the likes of Deshaun Watson at $39 million, behind Dak Prescott at $40 million, behind Josh Allen at $40+ million, and behind Patrick Mahomes, who's number 1 at $45 million. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that because Russell Wilson has done this and done that in his entire career, he just deserves to get that money. Well, let's face it, it's not who the best quarterbacks in football that get paid the most amount of money in football. It's about what they could provide for you in the future, and as well as what they're able to do for you now. And Russell Wilson, yes, Seattle didn't make the playoffs for the second time in his 10-year tenure with the team, but he did miss about 3.5 games. And so I'd still say that, banking on health, obviously Russell Wilson is still a top 5, 6, maybe 7 quarterback in the NFL, but Dak Prescott isn't a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and yet he's getting paid north of $40 million a year. And so I think while the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and while Russell Wilson might want to win Super Bowls, a little bit of extra cash on the side, I think could change a lot of people's minds, especially a guy like Russell Wilson. And here Seattle is giving me another $200 million, and with that $200 million contract, they could include a no-trade clause like he previously had, or like he currently has already in his contract. And with the no-trade clause, Russell Wilson is going to use that to be the guy who determines his destiny, to be the guy that controls his own destiny and where he goes. And last but not least, financial security in a place as familiar as Seattle, I have a hard time finding that to be something Russell Wilson's going to pass up. Who says the grass is always greener on the other side? Reason number 2. Seattle is about top 5 in terms of cap space entering the offseason, and they can enter the offseason with north of $50+ million in cap room. Now, I know Pete Carroll is on a record saying that cap space is going to dry up quickly because Seattle has a plethora of free agents that they have to bring back and re-sign them, so that money is going to quickly dwindle away. But I don't think Pete Carroll, but let me fill you in on a little secret here. I think that Pete Carroll, he didn't want to tell you guys the full picture because Seattle could create even more cap space if, yeah, maybe they're not the biggest players when it comes to this sort of party, but Seattle could always restructure contracts. They could always cut guys. They could always add voidable years. There's so many different ways to work around a cap, and we see the best teams, the best managed teams in the National Football League continue to work around certain cap constraints. So it doesn't matter if a team has X amount of cap space, and it doesn't matter if a team has or doesn't have X amount of cap space. The best teams in the NFL usually find a way to make it done. And at the end of the day, let's not forget that new TV deal for the NFL. The cap is going to explode by north of 20+ million to over $208 million. That's going to be a new salary cap, or at least somewhere around that number. And so Seattle is going to be given even more cap space, or they're going to have a little bit more cap space than people realize. I'm not going to act like Russell Wilson should be the GM and start directing and dictating where and who signs with the Seattle Seahawks. But if I'm John Schneider, look, I'm coming up to Russ and I'm going to be like, yo, here's a piece of paper, write down all the guys, whether that's in the trade market or free agency, write down the list or the entire list of players that you potentially want to play with. But at the same time, be realistic. Like, can we actually get this dude? So if I'm John Schneider, I'm going up to Russell Wilson. I'm going to have him make a list for us of guys that he'd be interested in playing with, and guys that he'd be interested in playing alongside with, and guys that he'd be interested in Seattle trading up for, or trading for, or signing a free agency, or targeting the draft, things of that nature. I'm not saying Russell Wilson's going to be the de facto GM and he's going to do this and do that. He's not going to LeBron his way with the Seattle Seahawks. That's just not how it works in football unless you're Tom Brady, because even Aaron Rodgers doesn't get that treatment. And so I think, Seattle, they can't really do a lot of harm by asking Russ to do that. It's not like they're obligated or they have to bring every guy that Russell Wilson asked for, but at least to make him feel like he's a part of the process, that definitely goes a long way in making sure someone is happy and making sure your franchise quarterback is content with the direction that the team is going in. Here's some free agents to consider. Outside linebacker Von Miller, guard Brandon Scherf, outside linebacker Chandler Jones, quarterback Stephon Gilmore, defensive ends Calais Campbell, Jason Pierre-Paul, defensive end Akeem Hicks, cornerback Joe Hayden, guard Andrew Norwell, defensive end Jerry Hughes, center Jason Kelsey, cornerback Kyle Fuller, cornerback Patrick Peterson, defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh. There are a litany of guys that Seattle could potentially target in free agency. And I'm not saying that Seattle has to go out and sign a whole bunch of dudes, but at least make an effort, at least show Russell Wilson that you're willing to make the moves necessary to be able to build a championship contender. How's Russell Wilson going to feel that Seattle can build a championship contender if they haven't been able to draft well in recent years, if they haven't been spending money in free agency to bring in guys? They don't have to make the flashiest of signings, but Seattle, what they do have to do is fill holes, not just with rookies and a whole bunch of undrafted guys. You need to bring in guys that have NFL experience. You need to bring in guys that have had success playing for other football teams. You need to bring in guys that could potentially fit this program and what they want to do. And you have to show Russell Wilson that you want to win, and you want to win with Russell Wilson now. As far as trade targets go, there's not as many that are available, at least in my eyes, from that perspective. But here are a few guys that I feel like Seattle could potentially target in the trade market. Cornerback Marcus Peters of the Baltimore Ravens. Pete Carroll is on record saying that in his next defensive coordinator, he wants the guy that can help turn up that defense. He wants a guy that can help that defense not only get after the quarterback more, but also get more takeaways. Seattle was in the mid-20s as far as takeaways, and they were also in the mid-20s as far as sacks across the NFL. And let's face it, that is not going to cut it in today's National Football League, especially with all these gunslingers and star quarterbacks and explosive offenses and super skilled and dynamic wide receivers and running backs. You need a complex defense. You need a guy that could play chess and not checkers with the rest of these other dudes. And obviously Seattle's not perfect in the personnel department, but they're able to attack certain holes on that defense. Marcus Peters is a guy that I would love for the Seattle Seahawks. And to say that Seattle would, or maybe could potentially trade for him, that doesn't mean that Seattle's cornerback room is bare. I mean, DJ Reed, he's a free agent, but I absolutely love DJ Reed, what he brings to the table. Sidney Jones, he had a bounce back year with the Seahawks. He's not going to command a whole bunch of money, but I do believe that he can be brought back at a reasonable price. But you can't have enough cornerbacks or DBs in the NFL, and so I think Marcus Peters will be a perfect fit. Another guy that I would like to potentially be traded to Seattle as far as being a low-cost option, Andre Dillard, former first-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles. Seattle could also use another receiver that could create separation and just add another weapon to Russell Wilson's arsenal. Jarvis Landry of the Cleveland Browns. There's also Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans. There are a lot of ways in which Seattle could go as far as the trade market and the free agent market. But last but not least, to keep Russell Wilson happy in Seattle, you got to re-sign and bring back some of your own guys. Like I just mentioned, DJ Reed, Quandre Diggs, Dwayne Brown, Gerald Everett, Will Dissly, Sidney Jones, Al Woods, Rashad Penny, who's potentially the future at running back for the Seattle Seahawks, Brian Monet. Seattle has a whole bunch of guys that they have to re-sign for this team to be successful moving forward. And a lot of these guys are also depth pieces. And so it doesn't mean that you have to go out into the draft and nail every draft pick. It doesn't mean you have to go into free agency and sign every available guy. That's what re-signing your own guys do. You bring back depth, you bring back guys that are familiar with the team already, and you bring back guys that aren't going to be super costly. Now, if Seattle could count on some of these guys to potentially take hometown discounts or to take less money, then the more the merrier. Obviously, like I said, with the cap jumping up and with a whole bunch of avenues to create more cap space, that should not be a problem for the Seattle Seahawks moving forward. But what they have to do and they have to show is that they have to be aggressive. They have to be aggressive in building a contender. That's what the best teams in the league do. The Kansas City Chiefs, despite not having much money, were still able to give guard Joe Thuney the most amount of money that a guard has ever received. They were also able to trade for Orlando Brown Jr. They hit on Creed Humphrey. The Buffalo Bills, they made a lot of moves. The Green Bay Packers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed. They brought back all their remaining starters from the Super Bowl 55. And so it's not impossible. These guys are in the NFL. They're making millions of dollars. They're able to work and navigate around a cap. It shouldn't be the hardest thing to do in the world. All that being said, none of these moves are guaranteed to make Russell Wilson happy or even content to stay in Seattle. What I do know is that I don't think by making any of these moves, they would make any man or any franchise quarterback unhappy. But the most that Seattle can do is at least show effort and not only just being content with retaining Russell Wilson, but showing him that they're more than willing to build a contender around him if they want to be able to return their services for the foreseeable future. You guys think down in the comment section below, is Russell Wilson, is he leaving Seattle? Is there any way to keep him happy in Seattle? Do you agree with the ways that I listed? Who are some guys that you guys would like to see Seattle target, either in free agency, in the draft, or on the trade market? Be sure to let your thoughts known down below. If you guys have any video ideas, video suggestions, topics you guys want to see us cover, different things that you guys want to see us do on social media, be sure to let your voice be heard down below. Again, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok at Steezy Smith, SteezySmith. And if you guys haven't already, by the time this video or this episode ends, you know, I'd start watching there. We have a whole bunch of other content, other episodes you guys might have missed, and some of those include is Rashad Penny, the future of the Seattle Seahawks at running back, and who's the last man standing in the Pacific Northwest? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Damian Lillard? Well, be sure to find out in these two videos that I will lay out for you guys. Links will be in the description below. Again, it's been a pleasure doing this. Much love, y'all. We will be launching our live show real soon, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on our other socials for more and more updates, to stay tuned there, to stay on top of things. Nothing but love, y'all. As always, all glory to God. Amen. And Steezy out. Again, this video is going to be dedicated to Mr. Todd Nas. While that concludes this video, we have loads of other content. You don't have to stop watching there. Other content on our channel homepage, as well as our social media platforms. And again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.